Welcome, everyone. This is the sixth event, or is it the seventh? Oh my God, it's the seventh event to celebrate the publication of this book, Dream Matter of Dark Matter Women Witnessing, Dreams Before Extinction. And I'm really excited about today's lineup. And I think there are only four of you, but each, from what I know of your work, hello, Andre, I knew you would show up because of Suzette. From what I know of each of you, I mean, each of you could have an hour and it would be amazing. So I think we're gonna maybe mix it up a little bit today because there's so much, I mean, maybe we'll even be able to have some community response after each person presents. Would that be cool?
It'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've never been able to do that before. So, and what else do I need to say? That the next event, we're planning it for November 9th for the Music of Grief, and our last event of the season will be December 7th, if things go as planned. And Writers Radio, Carol, did you just disappear? Oh no, there you are. Do you want to just say a word about Writers Radio and what you're doing for us right now?
Well, Writers Radio that publishes online programs and which also become podcasts and at writersradio.ca. And we've done a three-part series on this anthology. We started out with an episode with the editors, also reading from their pieces that were in the book, and then two other episodes that feature
Recording in progress.
the first sections of the book and then the second sections of the book.
I think everyone needs to mute. Sorry. Everyone but Carol.
Yeah, so part two is on right now.
Oh, everyone needs to mute because otherwise we can't understand what she's saying. Thank you.
It looks like the only one that hasn't muted is me, actually. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. So part two is on right now, and you can listen to the podcast for the first episode on the writersradio.ca website, and the third one launches in November.
And you can get all this information now on our website. You just go to the Dark Matter website and you'll see how to find the podcast. And you'll also see announcements about how to find replays of these events. And finally, there's this retreat happening in Montreal in January, an environmental writers retreat, cross-border. And you can read about that also on our website. I'll be there, and Bergeron, another editor of the anthology, will be part of it, and a lot of exciting things will be happening. Okay, enough of all of that. Those are our announcements. I will now turn it over to Kristen, who's going to lead us in an opening meditation.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your Saturday to join us today. We typically begin these gatherings with a brief meditation just to help us all arrive and settle. So I invite you to close your eyes and begin to take a few deep breaths. Today, we're going to try something a little different. I'm going to read from a piece by Sophie Strand titled Your Body is an Ancestor, which arrived in my inbox yesterday. So as you breathe, maybe allow her words to enter you like a prayer or an invocation as we silently invite the ancestors of our bodies, our lineages, the lands we live upon, and the wild ones who inhabit those lands to join us this afternoon. Your body is an ancestor. Your body is an altar to your ancestors. Every one of your cells holds an ancient and anarchic love story. Around 2.7 billion years ago, free-living prokaryotes melted into one another to form the mitochondria and organelles of the cells that build our bodies today. All you need to do to honor your ancestors is to roll up like a pill bug into the innate shape of safety, the fetal position. The curl of your body then is an altar, not just to the womb that grew you, but to the retroviruses that 200 million years ago taught mammals how to develop the protein syncytin that creates the sync-trophoblast layer of the placenta. Breathe in slowly, knowing that your breath loops you into the biome of your ecosystem. Every 7 to 10 years, your cells will have turned over, re-articulated by your inhales and exhales, your appetites and proclivity for certain flavors. If you live in a valley, chances are the ancient glacial moraine, the fossils crushed underfoot, the spores from grandmotherly honey fungi have all entered into and rebuilt the very molecular makeup of your bones, your lungs, and even your eyes. Even your lungfuls of exhaust churn you into an ancestor altar for Mesozoic ferns pressurized into the fossil fuels. You are threaded through with fossils. Your microbiome is an ode to bacterial legacies you would not be able to trace with birth certificates and blood lineages. You are the ongoingness of the dead, the alembic where they are given breath again. Every decision, every idea, every poem you breathe and live is a resurrection of elements that date back to the birth of this universe itself. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes and come back to us.
Kristen, that was such a wonderful doorway into what I neglected to say, what the section is titled that people will be reading from today, and it's Healing with Land and Ancestors. And it's just such a wonderful bridge into Suzette's work in particular. So I will now hand this over to Suzette Clough, who is joining us from London, England. Are you in London? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. I am in London.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi. Okay, I'm going to do my screen show. It's
And
like,
do you recommend that we all move to gallery excuse me, yeah, it happened automatically. Great. I didn't have to say that.
okay.
Okay.
I'd like to just say a little bit before I begin, which is I'm going to read what I wrote for the anthology, and it will be précis because it's a little bit wordy. But what I wanted to show you today really is the process that I use for painting and how I arrived at it. And in the I write a little bit about in what I wrote, talking about an experience I had when I was 12, which was in my very first art lesson. My art teacher gave us an exercise of drawing with crayon, black crayon, or actually it was a red and yellow crayon, and scribbling, and then putting a wash of black paint over the top. And in that moment, I had what I now know to be a spiritual experience, which in some way has really guided me as a painter. But in that moment, I had a sense of the painting having a voice. And over the last 55 years that I've been painting, what I have come to understand as my practice is a way of both facilitating the voice to come through to me, but also ways of listening to this voice and voices. So in the work that I want to show you as I read what I wrote, it's the work is called Cosmogenesis. It's 50 sheets of giant watercolor paper. At the moment, it will probably grow. The watercolor paper is like 1.5 meters by 1.2 meters. So it's probably 50 inches by 70 inches. And I work in a series of 5 paintings on the floor. And I always work on the floor. And as I work, what my invocation to the energy that comes through onto the page is really to express itself. And what I've learned as a painter and what I teach about in a kind of portable painting practice called visual medicine, what I've learned through my work is that when I try to exert control over paint, what happens is it diminishes it. And what really interests me in terms of being an artist is creating
I don't
a
want
wide.
to present a hazard on the highway. She drives up here about big.
To create a wider channel for this body of spirit to pass through me. And what I now understand this body of spirit to be when I'm working on my large canvases, which the paper is the size I shared, and the large canvases can be 3 meters by 2 meters. What I'm working with is a body of creation ancestors I call the pattern creation ancestors. And my work really is a way of allowing this dimension to have a space in the world with us and finding ways of this ancient language to come through into the world so that we can see it. So I'm going to start the slideshow.
Andrea wonders if there's a way that we can get it to fill the whole screen.
I will. I'm going to play it from, yeah.
Great.
So as we work through this, this is a series of paintings called Cosmogenesis, and this is my studio. So I'm going to start. Visual language is our first language, our mother tongue, the language we dream in. Visual language is the language of Earth, the material world of all living systems. When I tried to direct the paint to look the way I wanted, the painting acquired a feeling of as-ifness. It became a facsimile of itself. When I allowed the authentic materiality of the painting to show itself by becoming present with my own body, a process Donna Haraway describes as sympoiesis, meaning creating with, something else happened. The paintings flowed as a river, or a view of Earth from above, from within, from beyond. When I stopped trying to paint something and opened to listening to the voice of the painting, her body stories arrived. Guardian spirits emerged from the pigments. Rock beings protecting the sacred interior of cave and womb came through onto the body of the canvas. The Great Mother's tools showed up. Stone axes, cloaks, cups, and blankets. Star bodies birthing whole galaxies, hollowed out bones, baobab ancestor tree spirits. Mycelial sporic tapestries, intricate webs, beehives, prehistoric animal guides. The Devas of Earth were calling out from beyond the veil to trust our original pattern ancestors. These paintings arise as visual pattern holders of Earth's DNA, the generative blueprint of the patterns held in creation itself. This pattern language is the visual thread connecting us to everything and everything to us. The paintings tell visual narratives that remember us interrelatedness. We are all part cloud, part star, part leaf, part fungi, part living soil. Her body is our body is her body. These patterns are our ancestors telling a visual narrative that shares the same language as her body. And I just want to interrupt myself before I go to the rest of it, because what I didn't make clear is in the making of these images, I never use a brush. Everything comes through as a direction that arises from the paint in relation with me and the energetic forms that I'm working with. So when these serpents arise, or if we go back to the slide before, which may be hard for me now. Okay, I just need to pick that up. I can't find that little cue. Okay, there it is. Just want to go back to what you'll see later is in one particular series of the 50 paintings I've been working with, it was almost like a DNA spiral unraveled itself. And because I'm not working with anything that actually directs the paint to look like something, it's these paintings are making themselves up in the moment that I'm creating them. And they settle and coalesce into what feel like the very primordial patterns of the beginning of the world. And that moment of creation, which I think what Sophie says is the birth of the universe itself, is what these images in some way, to me, and as they're coming through, are actually talking about our primordial patterns, that when we are able to go to work with creation as an energy, as opposed to the products we create, something else begins to happen and form in the material world. Sort of, so when these serpents, which were one part of really a couple of, because I said I work in fives, they probably occupy 2 5s, so there are 10 patterns where serpents are very, very present. But what also came through them were energetic patterns of the universal stars being born, or in one particular download, there is a kind of mysterious language that looks like there's it looks like a candle, it looks like a language that came before language actually took form. So I'm just going to return to my reading. What I understand now is that the act of painting can be an actual liminal portal, a crossing over place to the multiverse of creation, where the principles of reciprocity, mutuality, and awe reign, where life continues to birth itself through patterns that have visual and energetic consistency with all matter. Painting is a way of listening to the voice of earth, to spirit, to spirits, to our own bodies, to the bodies of others, dead, alive, human, animal, light bodies, air bodies, mineral bodies, terrestrial bodies, cosmic bodies, animate and seemingly inanimate bodies. This is an image where you can actually see it's a series of 5 paintings that are up on the wall, but each one of them is kind of holding this a DNA spiral as it's unraveling. Painting is a way of knowing Earth. Painting is a way of remembering our ancestors, coming to know ourselves not as bystanders, witnessing our species teetering on the edge of ecological catastrophe, but as activators who share cosmic DNA with creation itself. I just want to read that line again. Painting is a way of remembering our ancestors, coming to know ourselves not as bystanders, but as activators who share cosmic DNA with creation itself. We are made of the same luminous fabric as the universe. Painting is a way to know this in every shining filigree of our being. And I want to just add something which I think addresses why I think that's so important. In our culture, we're often taught to think of creativity, but especially painting, as either self-expression or a therapeutic release, a way of articulating what we already know or processing what we've experienced. But there's another layer to this, to creativity, one that moves beyond the personal and into the relational and spiritual. This is the creativity that arises when we allow ourselves to become participants in a larger unfolding story, a story that doesn't just belong to us, but to the world itself. And this is a painting that stayed very, for a very short time. And I took a photograph of it. It's part of a series of paintings. I think it's called When the Stars Awoke. And I happened to look down and saw this being in the water as it was forming, and this incredible cosmic spirit who stayed for approximately 5 minutes and then left the paper. And so often in the work that I've been doing is that I use my camera to catch the moment when these pattern creation ancestors appear and disappear, because there's also a relationship where they are moving fluidly. And part of my work as an artist, I think, is in learning to see and learning to apprehend the moment when they come through. If I just have another 2 minutes, Lisa, is that okay? I couldn't hear you. No?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Let me just ask if Gwyneth, are you still there, Gwyneth? I saw you for a moment, and I want to make sure that this is not going to run into your time, but I think you've had to leave again, so I guess we'll see you later. All right, you can keep going.
Thank you. This is just a series of sort of referencing, which is to do with the ways in which those are marks on sandstone on the left, and on the right, it's a painting that came through. And you can see how the visual language correlates, where the Earth's kind of visual language system meets the unconscious or the creation DNA within the artist's self that belongs to all of us. And that happens to be a chapel in Scotland, and on the left is a painting just that catches the energy of that art. On the left is a part of cosmogenesis. On the right is some sandstone. And I'm going to leave it here. The giant blue morpho butterfly in the left-hand corner, and 3 different paintings that in some way hold the pattern of iridescence and flight. So I'm just coming back.
Just wow. I know we are going to have some response to this because I am not a painter myself, but I just am so blown away by this whole thing. The whole idea of creation DNA that's in each of us. It's not just about painting, obviously, but are there people, especially painters even, who might want to say something about how this landed for you?
Suzette, this is Jillian. I just want to say what a great honor it is to have been here for this presentation, and also to have been one of the editors, to have engaged with your work when it first arrived to us. I agree with Lisa. It's mind blowing, and what I want to say is that for me today, the way this work and your words have engaged me is that this year I've become involved with the 4 tribes of the heart of the world, the Wiwa, the Kogi. This is in Colombia. And my new project is to recuperate a piece of land, to return it to the reservation. So this lineage of Wiwa elders who have been tending to a temple there. It's a sacred site. It's a mountain and sacred assemblage of rocks that they describe exactly in the language that you used to describe your work.
Wow.
And I'm shaking. It's
Wow.
the synergy of this is so mind-blowing to me. And the signature, the name, it's the eye of gold. And that gold was so strong in all your paintings. And what they explained to me about this sacred site, masculine and feminine, these beings, they call them spiritual authorities, is that it holds the pattern of creation of the birds and all living species in their perfected form, which is why the signature is gold, as far as I understand what they're explaining to me. So I just want to affirm your work and your deep listening, because it's in complete resonance with what these Indigenous elders, spiritual, they've been doing for thousands and thousands of years in terms of holding and regenerating and recreating and nourishing and feeding the patterns of creation, this cosmic DNA that you talk about. So thank you so much. I feel so honored to be here.
Thank you, Gillian. Really.
Let me just check in with Gwyneth for a second. Are you okay? Are you able to?
Did you get my emails?
I did, but I want to know how much time you have. Can we go
Okay,
on with this?
it's not a question of time, it's a question of battery.
Oh,
So
how
if
much
you
do you
can
have?
fit me in right now, that would be good, because I only have
All
65
right.
battery.
Okay, and maybe if there's more to say about Suzette, and I hope there will be, because I would even have things to say, and I'm not a painter. We'll do that later.
Okay. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that I was just listening to part of what you were saying, and oh my God, does it ever tie in with what I'm sharing tonight too? So, oh, it's so uplifting to know that this is happening. So I'm Gwyneth, and I'm out here in Casablanca in a little pokey hotel room with very little light and a very low battery. So I'm from Rawdon, Quebec, Canada, and I promote worms for worm composting and their connection to sacred relationship, transformation, and sacred sexuality.
And are you going to say the title of your piece?
Yes, I am. And I also teach and have an alternative store with fresh organic food and transformations from my garden that is in the Flower of Life design, which is part of the Micmac wisdom. And that is what I want to share with you tonight. Or it's your afternoon, right? The Ilnu, who I just briefly introduced here, and can you bring that picture in? So the Ilnu, who I briefly introduced here, are a sect of the Micmac Nation, practicing their primordial ways to keep it alive for humanity. The Ilnu and I crossed paths in Quebec in 1997 when they returned home for a short time. Since they are a nomadic culture, I followed them intermittently to different countries to continue learning from them. Most recently, in 2024, I visited the oldest member, Kiso, who is 85 years old, and to learn more about avioles, if I could, from her. She has so much determination to keep sharing and leaving the ways of their tribe before she leaves this dimension. And she's the last of her kind. Of all the hundreds of people who have been living this way, she's the last one to keep it pure, 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 their primordial ways. And that's not an easy thing to do. This is also a picture of the Chief Riel, who has independent tree planting projects in 15 countries. And he does this all without government money or charity. He's won UN awards for it, many, many accolades. And he does this just all from the generosity of his heart and a great conviction that they need to plant trees on the alveoles to help humanity. This article is only a very, very small part of being in sacred relationship with the 5 elements that the Ilnu hold for us all. So the article is called Making
think
Love.
we can go back to you from the photo. Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Making Love with a 3 billion-year-old woman. In the spring of 2001, there was a 2-week period in my life in which everything came undone. My business suddenly collapsed. An ecologically, socially responsible business venture I was involved in was deceitful. My lover was deceitful, and I had to evict him from my house. The children's education, their school was crumbling, had a financial meltdown, and this all had to stop my daughter's education. I handled it all. I'm telling you all this because I handled it all by crying and journal writing and meditating and dancing for about 40 days. It was during this intensely stressful period that I started receiving a constant message in my head. It's in the water. It's in the water. The voice even woke me up at night, asking me to pay attention. It's in the water, it whispered. What's in the water? I was asking. Then a Japanese friend of mine showed up at my door, just back from a visit from Japan. She stood there with book in hand, hardly able to talk from jet lag. It's hot off the press, and I wanted you to be the first person to see it, she declared. The book was The Hidden Messages in Water by Dr. Masaru Emoto. No way, I screamed. And that moment changed my life. The first thing I did was go through the images, hoping to understand that what Dr. Emoto was demonstrating. When I came to the 2 images, which I don't have with me here right now, but they are in the article, let's do it, which forms a beautiful crystal, and do it, which doesn't form a beautiful crystal, doesn't form a crystal at all. I became very frightened and I broke down sobbing. And I'm even crying now as I think about that moment. It was so powerful. The images demonstrated that our intentions, our thoughts, our feelings, our scoldings, our judgments have visible effect on water. The second image showed me speaking to my children, and in fact, speaking to everyone, because I was so damn tired. And I had taken on way too much as a single mother. I had been doing battle like every other activist I knew. I was giving all my energy to the dark side, which was the opposite of what I was trying to achieve. I saw that despite my good intentions of trying to provide the best of education, the best food, the best mothering for my children, I was in fact providing a role model of exhaustion, negativity, and victimization. This is not a healing scenario for anyone, and this is certainly not a healing scenario for our planet. 1 month later, I found myself packing to return to our home in the country. So much was redirecting me there now as I had no choice. The children were overjoyed. They kissed the walls as the movers moved us in. And my old gardens were all overgrown after 7 years. So I decided to put into place what we had learned about making alveoles from the Ilnu tribe of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Alveoles, as they call them, are an extremely precise hexagonal surveying system that is aligned with the stars, the planets, and the telluric forces, the energy points of the earth. The Ilnu use this memory system, which is the same geometry as water, to work with the mothers, the earth and the cosmic mothers. Instead of dominating her They worked with her in everything they do and everything they live. The Ilnu had taught me where to locate this grid and to entrain myself to the wise map so that I could precisely align my garden with her, harmonizing with her, not deciding on what I wanted. These hexagons are alive, and all part of the alveoles are aspects of the female form. The breast, the nipple, the vulva, the eyes, the clitoris, the anus. They guard the memory of sacred sexuality, an element also of water, within the tribe, both in their relationship with the Earth Mother and amongst themselves. Their adoration, their caresses of the soil, their love of the plants and the flowers turn the wheels of transformation and communication with their Earth Mother and the other star beings in the galaxies, who they are very connected to. This is a oneness consciousness that was lived by all a very long time ago. I'm so grateful that the Ilnu I met have kept this flame alive for us for as long as they can. By now, I had discovered the book, The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. The Flower of Life design is the specific hexagonal grid that exists all over the planet's surface. This geometry creates a matrix field, which is nature's most efficient way of holding information. It's a kind of neural net, a brain that feeds information about us and what we are truly feeling into the water, which holds and transports all memory, as Dr. Remoto demonstrated. The Flower of Life hexagram is the same shape as a water crystal, and alveoles and the Flower of Life were the same sacred geometry. So that's all I'm able to share with you tonight, except that I just want to say it was such a privilege and such a bizarre synchronicity meeting this tribe. And they are nomadic, as I said. So I only saw them in Quebec for a short time. And then I started following them. And their wisdom is so awe-inspiring. And my work with the worms also brought that in, the serpent energy. And I also work with sacred sexuality, the serpent energy, the Kundalini energy, the life force energy. So connected to your work, Suzette. And I'm sure the other authors too. And I will stay along as my battery holds out. But as I told Lisa, my adapter is in another piece of luggage that isn't with me. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's great. I mean, it's amazing the resonance between these two so far.
Yeah.
So much. So could we just take a couple of minutes for people who
I
want?
got 40% more battery. I'm with you for as long as I can.
Okay, that's great. But I'm just thinking people might want to respond now to either Suzette or Gwyneth or both. Are there comments? I would love to hear from painters, especially I know that there's two painters, and one of them, if I do this to her, she'll never forgive me. But I know she would have things to say if she doesn't even have to turn on her video.
Well, I just want to say how yummy these first two sessions are, Suzette and Gwyneth. It's just the life force that's moving through, the eros of the life force moving through you is being met by the earth energies through your gardening, your work with the worms, and Suzette, your consciousness of what you are inviting through your paintings, the very beautiful precision of the liminal coming into form and continuing. I've had the privilege of actually playing with the paint with one of your students who took us on a retreat, and we did that. So I see how alive the process is, and it's the aliveness that is part of the dark matter women witnessing. We're witnessing not a new form that's rigid, but something that is totally alive. So yummy.
I just like to add that, so my medium is not paint. My medium is earth. It's a sculpture. And this whole caressing and working with the avios, forming the geometry, but also just like putting your hands in the compost,
Yeah.
massaging her into the dirt. This is all the sculpture.
That's why I wish for
arts.
you. I wish for you we had a visual of your garden.
I
That
didn't
would
have that
go.
with me.
Yeah, it would be wonderful to have that. So I see you now, Liliana. You want to say something?
Hi. I I don't really know what to say other than I was very impressed with your work, Suzette. I'm a painter too, very early age. I find it extremely what's the word? I'm looking for a text. I feel like I want to touch it. It's like earth, as you said.
Yeah.
My medium is oils and wood. And since I am originally from Latin culture, Argentina, and work with dreams, I work a lot with symbology. So it's not as abstract, but it's way more symbology. The images are that I wish I could show you, but what strike me is, hold on a sec. It's a little bit of, if you can see this, yeah,
Mm.
it's so that's as close, yeah, it's a bit of both the image and the woodcut that I do. So you can see I come from another angle, but we meet in the middle for sure.
Yes.
And thank you so much. I loved your work.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about Suzette's work, as something about it. I don't know why it gets to me so much about the allowing, the allowing, the listening. That for you, it feels like the painting. It's just so much about trusting the universe and allowing. It made me want to paint, and nothing makes me want to paint. Because you make me believe that if I really trusted, it would come through me, which is kind of amazing. Yeah. Well,
I've pulled up
yeah,
Wendy's essay
yeah.
just to show her garden, if I may,
Do you want to do that?
quickly.
Quickly,
Yeah.
quickly. Great. Wow.
So I believe these are the flower of life pattern. I'm straddling these two images.
Yeah. That's a springtime picture. So it actually gets, you can't even see the geometry in the summer, but there's the before planting. Yeah. And it's also musical because whatever you plant there and whatever you listen to, that the mother wants to come through, because she brings forth things that I don't plan on. It's all a musical symphony. It's all a vibration that's playing out to the cosmos and down to the center of the earth, and you're all part of that symphony. You're all part of that musical vibration that's, and the bees are in there, the birds, I mean, like it's the frogs. It's just such amazing music, yeah, that we're all part of. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Oh, now hands are up. I guess, Kristen, you were first, yeah.
No, Carol can go. It's
Carol
okay.
was- Okay.
Um, I love the work in both pieces, and I'm a photographer, so what strikes me is the similarity between both close-up photography of lichens and rock and so forth, and aerial photographs of the earth, like where rivers begin from glaciers and so forth. The kind of patterns that you see from above looking down, uh, whether you're like really close to the earth or really far away, there's uh, so much synchronicity with your work. Thank you so much.
Kristen?
Just really quickly, I wanted to say how much I appreciated that both in Suzette's work and Gwen's work, the notion of patterns, patterns that are life-giving, life-affirming, that draw us into creativity and fertility and vibrancy. There are so many negative patterns that can feel like a net cast over the world. And it's just really energizing to hear the way that both of you are working with patterns that give life and acknowledge the reciprocity of our relationship with the earth. So thank you both so much. Gorgeous work, both of you.
Thank you.
That's what I meant when I said we really need this. We really need this right now.
Mm.
All right, Julie, are you ready to present? And then
Sure.
Ian will be our last presenter.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, I was feeling a little shy about commenting on the other works, but I also thought the word yummy was perfect for describing Suzette's paintings. And there was one that looked like you were either inside of or right above a volcano. It was like almost molten. A few of them looked kind of molten to me.
Mm.
And then watery, but also the sense of looking at it from an aerial perspective. And I, as an architect, have a great affinity with geometry. And when I was in school, and certainly now I teach at University of Maryland, we don't talk about sacred geometry as much as we could. But we've all experienced when designing using geometry that things fall into place more, just kind of magically or naturally. So that's pretty wonderful. So I feel excited to be coming after the two of you because my piece has to do with water.
Mm.
So it's kind of, I guess it's not a coincidence because Lisa probably planned it that way, but I would say that my work as either an architect or a writer or a professor kind of navigates this both and between climate collapse, environmental collapse, and then reconciliation and repair and reconnection. And I'm really interested in how we situate or find ourselves on that kind of both and cusp between what we know isn't working and is damaging, actively damaging, and the systems that we are frankly a part of and complicit with, at least I'll speak for myself. And of course, these other ways of knowing, these other realities, and these other just sort of bright spots of people who are actively repairing the world. So that was what I wrote about, and I have later, if we get to it, kind of a funny story about how I got to be in issue number 3. But I'll leave that for later if we if it comes up. This is from it's not the beginning of the piece, but it's kind of more toward the middle. So, and just to preface again, it says it starts with I live near a stream called, and that's true, but for about 28 years, I did live near this stream, which was part of the Patapsco River watershed that is one of the rivers of the Chesapeake Bay. But now I live in a different watershed near the Severn River outside of Annapolis, I live in Annapolis. So we've moved from Baltimore. But it's the Chesapeake Bay is all the closer to get out to on a boat. I live near a stream called Western Run that feeds into a larger stream called the Jones Falls that flows into one of the Chesapeake's rivers, called by the original people the Patapsco. I imagine the
Did
bay
you say
offering,
when you want the visuals to come in? I'm
oh,
sorry.
any time is fine.
Okay, anytime.
They could just
So,
be a background. That way people are looking at something prettier. These are paintings that I did over the years of watery things or sunrise things. Um, I'll keep talking while you get that up. Let's see. Called by the original people, the Patapsco. I imagine the bay offering this suggestion of a water walk to every heart living in the 64,000 square miles of her watershed. As I research the idea, it helps to see that I am not the first one who has said yes. Still, I have no idea what will be required of me. In the Creator's original instructions, women were to be the caretakers of the living water. When the big ships arrived in North America with men who did not know these instructions, many traditions were suppressed and forgotten. Some of the original people still follow the instructions and the prophecies of the grand chiefs, women like grandmother Josephine Mundaman. She was born an Anishinaabe far to the north in a land carved by glaciers and grew up on an island living the same way as the Chesapeake's first people, in kinship with the water, the fish, the birds, the sun and moon, and the seasons. In answer to the cry for help from her watery home, which her people in their language called the Big Boss Lake, Grandmother Josephine took up her copper pail in 2003 and started to walk. She walked with her open heart along the awakening springtime shoreline, circling the entire lake to bless the water, to listen to and speak with the water spirits, to sing prayers of healing, and to perform ceremony by offering tobacco and thanksgiving. She walked to restore right relationship with the water and for the benefit of the next generations. The following year, she circled another of the Great Lakes, gathering attention and new participants along the way. These walks continue every year. Websites have sprung up, such as waterwalkersunited.com, idlenomore.ca, and nibiwalk.org. There's even a Facebook group, Water Walkers United. Their journeys are both spiritual and physical. They walk to call attention to the sacredness of water, to honor and heal it, and to raise awareness of the need to take care of the water. Their 2015 walk took place during July and August, trekking 846 miles westward from Ontario through Michigan to Wisconsin. Many of Grandmother Josephine's sisters have been inspired to organize water walks along ailing waterways in their own home places, including the St. Louis and Ohio rivers. The 2014 Ohio River Walk spanned 906 miles from Pittsburgh to Cairo, Illinois. They walked for 33 days, averaging 27 miles per day. Closer to home, in May of 2015, walkers in Virginia trekked the 340-mile length of one of the Chesapeake Bay's tributaries. When the English came, they named this river the James, but it was also known as the Powhatan, after the great chief of that land. They walked to bless and pray for healing of the waters after a CSX train derailment in April 2014. The 105-car train, en route to Yorktown, Virginia from North Dakota's Bakken Shale region, spilled crude oil directly into the river, which then exploded into a fireball. The Unity Walk began near the river's source in the Blue Ridge Mountains at Iron Gate, Virginia. They averaged 28 miles per day on the 12-day journey, which took them past state parks, historic sites, farms, cities, wildlife refuges, and industrial sites. When the group reached the Chesapeake Bay, they sang and performed ceremony to offer the headwaters from their copper pail. We are telling the water, this is how you began, and this is how we wish for you to be again, Ojibwe elder Sharon Day told a local newspaper. The walkers wept tears of joy to be greeted by a family of cavorting dolphins. I imagine walking with a small group of companions carrying a copper pail and pouches of tobacco and corn pollen, walking with an open heart and listening, trusting that my sincerity will allow me to hear the song of the Chesapeake, even though in my growing up, no one taught me how to do this. In my culture, such things are dismissed as childish superstition. As I walk, my ancestors send visions of the great crust of my culture slipping off the living land, just as a crab sheds his shell. Where my path takes me through the asphalt parking lot of an abandoned shopping center, I see the truth of their vision. Knotweed rising to the light from a crack in the paving. The spirit of the knotweed plant sings of restoring balance to the waters of the human body, and my spirit is filled with hope. I know myself to be water, to be united by water with all other beings. There are hundreds of thousands of creeks, streams, and rivers in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. At the shoreline, the major tributaries are the Susquehanna, the Patapsco, the Patuxent, the Potomac, the Rappahannock, the York, the James, the Pocomoke, the Nanticoke, the Choptank, and the Chester. Smaller rivers include the Elk at the head of the bay, the Gunpowder near Aberdeen Proving Ground north of Baltimore, the Severn and South Rivers at Annapolis, the Piankatank and the Nansemond in Tidewater, Virginia, and the Sassafras on the eastern shore. There are two small Wicomico rivers. One feeds into the north shore of the Potomac, about 20 miles from its mouth. The other lies between the Pocomoke and the Nanticoke, with the Ellis Bay Wildlife Management Area at its mouth. Mostly marsh and forested wetland, this 3,000-acre haven for ducks, wading birds, deer, and smaller animals is one of the many lands left behind by time on the eastern shore, lands that will be submerged under rising sea levels. I'm going to leave it there. Good.
So I didn't plan it that way, Julie. I mean, I didn't.
Funny.
That's incredible how much you and Gwyneth are writing about the same sources about water. And do you want to tell the story? Would you like
Oh,
to?
it's I don't I'm sure you don't remember, but I submitted it and after a bit, um I the editors of that issue of that journal, issue number 3, wrote back and said, we enjoyed this, blah blah blah, the writing, etc. Um, and we're looking more for I forget I should look up the email, but we're looking more for writing that is more action oriented for things that you've done. And so I thought about it for like a day, and honestly, this is so unlike me, but um, almost like a voice in my head just said, you have to write them back and tell them that writing is doing. So that's what I did. And you responded pretty soon after that and said, you're right. You're in. Because I hadn't actually done a water walk. And in fact, I feel a little self-conscious today because I still haven't done a water walk. I haven't ruled it out, but now that I live in a new place and I'm much more involved with the Severn River than I was with any of the places in Baltimore, I don't know. I did a lot of research into it. I just couldn't picture how to actually water walk the Chesapeake Bay because it's really big.
Yeah.
It's got 11,000 miles of shoreline, so it's not. Anyway, that's the story. I
Well,
talked my way in.
but the other striking thing about both of you, I mean, both of you were instructed by indigenous tribes. You're talking about a ritual that
Yeah,
comes from tribes and
right.
Um,
And that
just
people are still doing it. I just looked up
yeah.
before we started on the Nibi Walk website. There was a walk from the Mississippi River, from the Gulf on Mississippi River from the Gulf to Itasca, taking place in September, October. So I don't know if it's done or if it's still going on, but one of the sites that I mentioned in there isn't there anymore. But there are two that are still around. Well, I Don't Know More is clearly a much more involved organization. Doesn't It's not just about water walking. Um, but anyway, Nibi Walk's little motto on their website is "Every step is a prayer," which is really beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments from anyone?
Did any of the paintings make it up? I didn't see them.
What?
Were they? I had
Oh,
a piece
yes.
of
Oh, they
paper.
all made it. We
Okay,
were
good. All
watching
right,
while
that's
you were
fine.
talking.
I had the screen cover because I didn't want to. I was just reading
I
from.
love those paintings. Um, I will say that I was going to explain how I met Gwyneth, which is a very funny story in and of itself, but you can read it. It's in the anthology and it's also online. I'm her neighbor. I was attracted by her signs. The last one was sacred sexuality. So I went in and met her, and I then proceeded to do these ceremonies with her every spring, which were water ceremonies.
Mm,
And it was the Inu who had taught her these this particular ceremony. They delegated her to teach non-Indigenous people how to do this. So we did
mm.
this every spring
Oh,
over
nice.
the frozen lake. We would do this amazing water ceremony. I think we did it for 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
Yeah. So there was just so many parallels to what you were talking about, and I honestly hadn't planned it. I didn't realize it before.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, any other comments? If not, we will go on to Jillian.
I just wanted to say, Julie, that your images and the way in which you were saying the names of the rivers felt like a prayer as well. And there was something about the kind of the rhythm of those images kind of coming back and again felt like water washing over. And because my ear is not attuned to Native American names, it felt like you were blessing me through them.
Hmm.
It was really powerful. Thank you.
I thank you for saying that. I have to say one more. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that my husband is on this Zoom, and I would not have had really any of these experiences if not for him. He taught me how to sail, and he also insists on going out more often than I'm comfortable doing. And so really all of the my appreciation, comes from being out there on a boat, on a sailboat, which is pretty vulnerable place for someone who grew up super safe with a mother who hates boats and hates anything not safe. So uh, just I'm thinking of the one of the sunrises, the one that's very calm and just has a little bit of light. That's one of our favorite anchorages. And I was sitting on the boat painting that one very early one morning. Like, it gives me chills to think about. And, it's something I just appreciate so much. And I also am reluctant to go out when it's very windy because I'm scared.
Hmm.
But that's not that relevant, that part. But the Chesapeake Bay is an amazing, amazing place. Like we call it our own big sky country because, it's not Montana, but it's when you're out there, it's just all sky. It's,
We could kind of feel that from the paintings.
mm, yeah, she, Chesapeake Bay means mother of all waters in the
Oh, wow.
Susquehannock language. So
Mm,
it was created by a meteor
mm.
falling on the earth. There's a big gouge down the middle that they've seen. Anyway, I could go on and on.
Okay, Jillian.
Well, it's a great honor to come after all of you. It's such beautiful, amazing, powerful work. And I'm going to read a section of my essay. I was realizing, reading, selecting, it's abridged from several pages, that I could have titled the essay, instead of Healing with Land and Ancestors, Healing of Land with Ancestors, because that's what this section sort of speaks of, you could say. I also work in patterns, but I work in patterns across media. So timings of events across time, space, synergies, synchronicities, kind of following a flow of what I call the grammar of being, after Foucault, Michel Foucault, and the first chapter of his amazing, amazing book called The Order of Things, called The Prose of the World. It's not a very well studied chapter, but I highly, highly recommend it. And so I also work with both ends to follow you. Thank you. The only thing you need to know by way of background to what I'm reading, if you haven't read the piece, is that this has to do with a home, a property that I bought in 2019, and I kept trying not to buy it because it definitely had a negative charge and kept being brought back to it again and again and again. And it's been a great teacher for a lot of reasons. So, all right. A cell tower is proposed. On September 11th, 2021, a date that recalled America's September 11th, my beloved horse, Feather Spirit, kicked out and broke my leg, the only harm he has ever caused me in our 18 years together. In shock at yet another break, I was now forced to stay in the little house of horrors 24/7 and be with the tense energies. These hadn't left, despite the beautifying renovations and a powerful land and house blessing by traveling Tibetan monks. I was still experiencing that unpleasant hum in my nervous system when at home. A month into my ordeal, I heard from a friend that an 11-foot tall cell tower had been approved for the mouth of our dirt road to be planted by AT&T up against the Oak Creek Greenbelt, like a flagpole claiming our rural and scenic valley for its wireless market territory. The tower's massive ganglia of antenna would be on par with the Pueblo ruins on the surrounding mesas, including the one above my house. It blocked the sight lines between these and the ancestral burial mound on a loop of Oak Creek further downriver. Birds of prey, including endangered bald and golden eagles, holy to the first people, hunt the chaparral groves on the mesa tops and nest in the riparian corridor immediately below. I read the landmark trilogy and review of environmental health just published that described the biological mechanisms by which man-made 4G LTE and 5G millimeter radiation microwaves change the biophysical properties of the habitat of air in ways foreign to Earth's lower atmosphere. For insects and birds and other flying mammals like bats, whose body sizes or parts approximate or match those wavelengths, and whose body cavities are full of magnetoreceptors that attune them to Mother Earth's natural electromagnetic fields, these bioengineered modifications of frequencies spell confusion and direct harm up to instant death. For example, when these beings or their body parts match in size the bioengineered wavelengths and go into partial or full resonance. Compelled once again by a force greater than myself, I rallied the community from my couch and then my hobble leg to, my couch and hobble-legged to protest the tower. So I jump a section here that describes the cell tower developer being a little vague about their NEPA compliance. Every cell tower requires National Environment Policy Act compliance. And so I pursued them through a Freedom of Information Act to see what they had actually done at the FCC. Over those initial months of opposition, I discovered and nurtured in myself a fierce love, one greater than fear. I observed, just as Deborah Bird-Rose had argued, that genocide and ecocide travel together in white settler colonial worlds. A blind self-centeredness soon gripped our valley over the tower, where the sacrifice of the green belt and its many, more than 21 endangered species and critical habitats, 6 critical wetlands, was a price many were willing to pay for the convenience of a cell phone working almost everywhere. I received old West-style threat calls. You are making enemies, Jillian. Watch out, and was trolled on social media. But I also found new allies on the land. The red hawks that nest in the Oak Creek corridor below and hunt the chaparral groves on the mesas above began now with exquisite precision to time their whistles, appearances, and flyovers with my intuitive hits on what action to take next, or my moments of deepest doubt. Hawk helped me trust myself and also withstand the backlash. Heart-shaped stones popped up every time I walked my mesa slope, blessing me with fairy-like goodness. After months of trying to find a lawyer, my email about the Oak Creek case to the biologists and scientists who had written that review reached a lawyer with NEPA and FCC experience who emailed me for pro bono anonymous consulting, a miracle. Around the June solstice, as the cell tower developers' NEPA compliance report deadline was coming up, I had the impulse to put Feng Shui wealth coins on a circle on my altar. The following week, my constellation group, I facilitate a constellation group here in Sedona, decided we would explore the unbearable tension that I was still experiencing in my home. What emerged was a tableau of aftermath of a massacre. But unexpectedly, the period was not settler colonialism as I'd long thought, but the earlier arrival in the valley of Spanish conquistadors in search of coin in the nearby traditional Indian miles of Mingus Mountain. No wonder the broken pottery sherds stopped abruptly in the 1500s. These are sherds I found on my own. No wonder my mother had had a vision of the Virgin Mary above the mesa top Pueblo ruins, and Christians had buried 2 of their dead on the mesa top in the native village. Also, unexpectedly, a trauma fractal appeared in the constellation tableau of Spanish soldiers, many of whom had been conscripted from Spanish prisons to fight in the new colonies. These wretched men had apparently been left to die on the land side by side with the Pueblo people, without Catholic rites of absolution that they had been promised, and would have redeemed their sins of pillage and rape and guaranteed their entry into heaven. These Spanish soldier spirits were the angry souls still haunting the mesa. The tyrants, as the Hopi called the conquistadors, had in fact traveled the ancient Hopi-Palaquapi Trail here from the Hopi mesas to the north of our valley. An historical recreation map showed the Hopi-Palaquapi Trail branching right through the proposed site of the cell tower and along my land. The cell tower undertaken also motivated by greed. A week later, I convened another constellation group. The room was filled palpably by the wild rage of the soldiers passed over for death rites by their lord priests, and the wild rage and grief of the Pueblo people whose loved ones had been massacred and whose home had been demolished, bringing their way of life that had happened here for thousands and thousands of years in communion with the sacred landscape. There's a whole ecology of sacred sites and sun calendars and communications between different points in the landscape of this valley. So, whose homes had been demolished, bringing their way of life to a bad end. A woman had chosen to represent the land, and she reported the same hum coursing through her body that I was experiencing at my house and on the land. The land was holding these cursed emotional energies, forcing a repeat of the trauma fractals in the present, because life knows no ground zeros. In other words, there's no wiping of what has happened before to start anew. There's a continuity and a recursive continuity of patterns, whether they're life affirming or life denying. And continues So so the land was holding these cursed emotional energies, forcing a repeat of the trauma fractals in the present, because life knows no ground zeros and continues to invite healing until healing happens. As soon as reconciliation between the victims and perpetrators happened spontaneously in the constellation work, the room palpably quieted as a feeling of grace descended upon all of us, including the land, the person representing the land. Something monumental had shifted and healed. Over the next few days, the same quiet descended on me, my house, and the land. And then I won't say this, but I won't read this, but this also correlates to ancestral events in my own lineages that have to do with the relationship between my Dutch and French ancestors and slave trading and indigenous sort of settler colonial moves on their part over the last 500 years. And so all of these things were woven, coming together into this purchase of this land, in this kind of unraveling that I continue to experience to this day. There are other layers, other revelations that are being shown, that are coming up. So I think I'm going to probably live here for another 2 years and then I'll be done. Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Thank you, Jillian. So, yeah, you kind of brought in the shadow side.
I certainly did. That's my work.
So, anyone want to say anything about that? We understand why you didn't want to buy that property and also why you were meant to buy that property.
Yeah. By the way, the cell tower is still quagmired at the FCC.
Mhm.
And the sort of landscape of opposition has changed, or wanting the tower has changed. There's been a real evolution around that as well in this valley.
Mm.
Gillian, I feel very moved by what you were sharing, and I can really feel the registration between your experience of where your home and the kind of ancestor spirits that are coming through the constellation work. And I think it's very similar for me in the way that I paint, that it's creating a ground for spirit to come through in order for these stories to have a place to live. And in the resolution of it, there is a kind of recohering of these ancestor patterns that I think is both a kind of mutual generosity, because I believe that spirit kind of coming through the veil is so difficult. It takes so much energy for them to communicate with us in that way, but also the generosity in order to receive the story that comes through your willingness to listen.
Yes. Well, there were dreams that I had that made it kind of difficult for me not to buy this land. And I had to listen. And that deep listening that you do and others on this call do. Yeah. And, I made a prayer when I was in my 20s that I would serve Creator Spirit. I just didn't specify how I'd like to do that. And so I have had a series of encounters with the shadow side of things. But I'm very, very aware of the light side of things. And I see that sometimes our shadows are really pronounced because we insist on living just in the light, what we perceive to be the light. And there is, in fact, in creation, a beautiful play of void and darkness and light, just as night balances out day. And if we think of our how this valley is now filled with LED lights that beam clear across 2-3 miles. There's hardly no darkness in the night. So we are of a civilization that has waged war on the shadow. And the more we do that, the more the shadow rebels, the shadow comes forth. We're bringing this onto ourselves, really, in that dance of light and dark. Those are my feelings right now about this. And there's darkness in the heart of the world in Colombia, and they're fighting it. They're trying to preserve these sacred sites that to them are not just personal territory. That's not how they think about territories. They think about territory very much in the way that has been discussed today as patterns, ancestral past patterns, as the registration of cosmic DNA and galactic DNA that makes life beautiful on this planet. If we only learn to speak that grammar of being. So I'm learning it. It was said also on the call that, we're not raised, certainly me as a white person in an upper class, middle class background, not raised, so how do I come to do this work? It's pretty interesting to me too, as to how spirit guides. Yeah.
There's a lovely fierceness and courage that I hear to your work. And I just admire that deeply. To take it on and see it as a soul challenge, to meet this at the many levels that you're aware of, not just a reaction to a physical form or an energetic interference, but the constellation work that takes you into so many nuanced patterns in the past, and I'm sure the future as well. And then your close observation of the wildlife as well, that participation. So you are a weaver, a warrior weaver, protectress of the land. And I think each of us, when we do honor the call that has brought us to this kind of work, which is a love of the land, a love of nature, a love of soul, and a sense of intimacy with that. Having a community like Dark Matter Women Witnessing gives us a place to not be alone in that. And that communal, I've got your back, is so important in these times. So thank you, Jillian. You've done wonderful work. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
everybody
much.
today too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Any last comments? We're getting very close to the end, and we don't have to go all the way to 3:30 if there's nothing else to be said, but I'm leaving it open in case there is.
I would like to thank you, Lisa, and the other editors, and fellow writers, just for this opportunity and to be included in this anthology is a real honor. And I especially since I had to talk my way into issue number 3. I was glad I was invited to be in the anthology. So I don't take that lightly. I really
Wow.
appreciate it.
Well, we're feeling very wonderful about this anthology, and we're hoping it gets out into the world in new ways. And Carol is helping us with that, and I just think it's an amazing volume. Very proud of it.
Yeah,
So,
you should be.
and Jillian is one of the editors, and I should have said that before. Maybe everyone knew that, but yes, Jillian and Kristen and I and Anne Bergeron together. So, unless there's anything more, we can end here. And it was just wonderful to have this conversation with all of you.